How do I visit an indigenous tribe? This is a question that I get asked a lot, and it's a very complicated question. In this video, I'm gonna dive in the blueprint, how to get there. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Wiggert Meerman. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm an adventurer, and most people know me from my work going to the Amazon jungle, stay there with tribes, I live with the tribes, I do the rituals, the initiations. I've stayed there for months, been there multiple times, and collect the lessons, how they live, how they think about life, and try to share that with the rest of the world, the wisdom from the forest. Unfortunately, my book is only in Dutch, you can see it up here. We're working on the translation, and you will be the first one to be updated if you subscribe to this channel, so please do that. So first things first, if we think about going to an indigenous tribe, obviously we have hundreds of tribes all over the world. So the first thing for you will be to decide which tribe do you want to go to. And then we have a diversion of indigenous tribes in that area. For example, the Amazon area, they have the uncontacted tribes as well. You do not want to go to an uncontacted tribe because it's very dangerous. They want to be left alone. They should be left alone. And the only ones who are really interacting with them are the Huni, which is an organization set up by the Brazilian government to actually protect the forest, the people, to keep an eye on poachers, illegal logging, criminal activity. And even they, in the last 20 years, multiple people have been killed or have been wounded after the second or the third interaction. Because you're trying to establish a relationship, try to understand the people, what they want, and obviously it's very hard to communicate if you don't speak the language, because they all have their own language. They have a history. They have a history with the modern white people, I guess we can call it like that. Because firstly, the colonists came to South America, and they really traumatized the indigenous communities. And you have to understand that these indigenous communities, by nature, they would rove around through the forest. They would stay somewhere for 3 years. They would hunt, they would use the fruits, they would eat everything in the area. And at one point, after 3 years, this local community area gets depleted. So what do? You go on to the next area so that this ecosystem can recover, that the animal population can recover. And you go there for 3 years and then you go to the next, and that's how they're supposed to live. When the colonists came, they gave the local communities a designated place. Huni, Kuin, you have to stay here. Yawana, you have to stay there. Ashaninka, you have to stay here. And this created a challenge for them, because when you stay on one place for 20 years, and normally for 3 years, you can imagine that you're running out of natural supplies. So they are already more and less in contact with the modern world. They are more or less dependent on the modern world. They go to the city to buy their rice, to buy their chicken, but they still live in the forest. They have their rituals. They have had their introduction to the modern world in a different way. Now, imagine these uncontacted tribes. A lot of them are also, they have a history of the colonization era, but also the rubber era. Rubber was the new gold in Brazil. So everybody was going to the rubber area in indigenous territory, of course, and they would, enslave the indigenous. They would sell them, rape them, murder them, hunt them. It's been a very tough time through the centuries for these indigenous people. So they would flee into the jungle. And then obviously the people who fled into the jungle, they tell the stories to the next generation. Like, those people, don't go there because, they're violent, they're evil. And this is kind of the generational trauma that is also with these people that just, is still in the system of these people, which is obviously a very sad thing. Another very sad thing is that they are very vulnerable to our diseases. Most of the indigenous people that have been killed because of this bacterial transfer, and their immune system was not able to recover from that, and they would die. So imagine if I hang a shirt on my hut in the jungle and uncontacted tribe comes around, takes my shirt, and they would wear it. They can actually drop dead the next day. That's how sensitive this subject is. The tribe that I go to is there for years. and they've been in contact with the modern world. They have their own place. And my mentor, the tribe leader, a shaman named Isha, he's as indigenous as you can be. But even he never saw any uncontacted tribes in his area. So imagine the size of this area, because he lives in the area with the most uncontacted tribes today in Brazil, in Acre. And he never saw any of them in his area. And he's been there more than 50 years, you know. So imagine just the size of this land, right? Okay, so back to going to an indigenous tribe. I guess there are multiple ways to go there. If you want to go, in general, like me, on the Indiana Jones adventure kind of style, you have to be invited. You have to be invited by somebody from the tribe, so you can actually go there. I was invited by the tribe leader himself. I met him at an ayahuasca ceremony in Amsterdam. He was traveling through Europe. I had a vision of me going to the jungle. Next week, I contacted somebody in Rio de Janeiro, like, hey, I had this vision. I have to go to the jungle. I heard you are arranging his trip. Can you do something for me? And he was like, yeah. Next Thursday, he's in my apartment. We can go on a Skype call and you can do your story and, you know, maybe you get the invitation. So I did my story on Skype and I got the invitation. Half a year later, I went to the jungle. That's how I went there. Another thing would be that these indigenous tribes, that sometimes they open up the doors for outsiders once a year, twice a year. They have this festival. And you can go there because for them it's a stream of income, to be really honest. So they open the doors to outside people. Like people like me can invite friends, like, hey, we go to the jungle, there's this festival, and you will get the full 100% experience. Because when I went there by myself, it was actually very boring. Because people would go hunt, they would go, make sure take care of the agriculture. It was very boring. And if you don't speak the language, there's nobody to talk to, it can be very lonely. And obviously I was there for my personal reasons, but I can imagine, like, if you want to go there, for example, for 1 week or 2 weeks, go there with a festival, you'll be there with multiple people, multiple outsiders, and you can share the experience, which is also very cool. I've done that as well, and it's been very, it's been good in both ways. I guess another way of going to an indigenous tribe is by tourism agency. My experience here is that the local tourism agencies, these experiences are very poor in the experience. I went to Malaysia, to the Orang Asli people, go in a bus with 40 people, Japanese people with a camera. Basically, you're going to this piece of land in the woods where you can photograph people doing their thing. They do this demonstration on the blowpipe. They do their dancing and stuff. Being there made me very uncomfortable, and it was not the way I wanted it myself. It's good if you go for a day experience, but just be aware that most of it is, it's just tourism based, and that didn't really feel good for myself. Now, obviously, when you go on a holiday and you see the flyers in a hotel, you're aware of these kind of trips, and they're everywhere. Another way would be to just go there and see what happens. This is what people do. I've been in the forest where a guy from Czechia came along, and he printed a picture from a song that he saw, an ayahuasca medicine song that he saw on the internet. He printed the picture of the shaman. He went to the city where you fly into the Amazon, and from there you take a boat to all the different tribes that there are. And he just went into that city. He spoke a little bit of Portuguese. He asked around, and he didn't end up with the shaman he was looking for, but he did end up with an invitation in the village where I was staying. This is very adventurous, and he also could have gone there and had no invitation. So that's a bit more risky. But if you have the time and if you have the balls to do that and the money to spend, then you can go on that adventure. I myself went to Borneo, and I went to the inward land 3 days by boat, hoping to be invited with the Iban tribe, the headhunter tribes. Fortunately, I ran into a local chief who lived a few days even further into the jungle, and he invited us to stay at a longhouse. And we paid him some money for it, and obviously that's the exchange, because in most of these areas people are poor, it's very remote, and that also brings a risk, because 20 years ago, I'm 40 right now, turning 41 next Sunday. But 20 years ago, I went to Borneo and I looked into the Lonely Planet, and there was a statement like, if you go there, you can get the invitation to stay with a tribe, but be very aware that you are remote, you are unprotected, and people take advantage of it because people are poor. And you know, not every indigenous and not every shaman has good intentions. We were invited by a certain person to go to his tribe, and he asked some money for it, and we were like, no, we'll just see what happens, and maybe we'll come back to you. Just didn't feel right. And then the next day, I saw this guy being dragged away by two police officers, hanging half KO'd with blood on his face, because he just robbed a few tourists and with a knife. We were very lucky in that particular case. So being there in Borneo, I paid some money to the right guy, and he let me stay in some kind of longhouse, and they were, you know, doing a local ritual, their local dance. But that also really felt like they were doing that because I paid them to do it. You know, I paid for my stay, and they were, I guess they felt the obligation to do this. And it was a nice experience with the skulls hanging on the rooftop, and yeah, it was a really cool experience. But that's the more adventurous way of how you can go there. If you don't want to go to this really organized tourism kind of stuff, you can go to this tourism agency that's a very niche. They are connected with local tribes. They organize smaller festivals. I can put a link down below if you want for the ones that I know in the Amazon. It's a friend of mine, Renata, who's organizing these trips. The full 100% experience. They know a tribe leader or a shaman. They organize a week and they get people into it. And there's people all over the world flying into it. They take care of everything for you, how you should fly, your preparations and all that stuff. Because I don't do any of these organizations myself. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm not a tourist guide. And it takes a lot of effort and preparation to really go to the jungle and go camping in that way. There's also a level of comfort that you have to decide for yourself that you would like for this trip. Because you can go to Peru, where there's more ayahuasca tourism, where there's more, it's more approachable. You just fly on Cusco, and within 1 hour you can be in the jungle. Where I go, you have to travel for 3 or 4 days. So, and you're just in boats, in planes, etc. So it's way more difficult. Basically, you go camping into the jungle. But you can also, you know, book online your Peruvian resort with an air conditioning, maybe a vent or maybe a mosquito net, and you know you can rent your towels there. It also exists, but it's a different experience. You will still work, for example, with an authentic shaman. Or they're way more developed into the tourism thing, and obviously it depends on where do you want to stay. And for me personally, I really wanted to stay in the most authentic way that was possible. So I really enjoyed my stays in the forest with no internet, no Wi-Fi, no streaming water. And yeah, that's the way I like it, and I like to do it. But there are multiple ways of getting to these places. So my first suggestion for you would be to decide where you want to go. The second would be make sure you get an invitation. Go to these events, go to the ayahuasca ceremonies, go to wisdom keeper ceremonies, go to these gatherings where people speak. And when you feel like, hey, this is something I want to be part of, I want to go to, make sure you just ask for an invitation. If there's a festival, if there's another ceremony, just build a relationship. And that's really something that is very important for this. Also, if you have the intention of making photographs or making a documentary, this is even more complicated because it's more invasive, right? If somebody comes in your house and he starts making pictures all the time from you, it's also very, a little bit rude maybe. You need to build trust before you can do that. So if you're planning to do a TV documentary, most of the time the best place will be to go to the local government, get the permits, and they probably have a person who's very well in touch with a local tribe and can take you there. You get your plane, you go with the guide, and you can do your thing, and then everything is prepared in that way. But it's a more scheduled and it's a bigger operational thing. And I guess if you're looking to this video, you're just looking to go to get the indigenous experience. And I guess it's also very important for yourself to to really understand the history of the indigenous people, where you go to, and understand where they come from. Because unfortunately, the history of most indigenous tribes with the modern world is not very good. And they, the way how they live right now is a result of that. So you have to be very careful. I noticed there's always some form of distrust, because it's very easy to be taken advantage of if you don't know how the big world works, or the Western world works, or how money works. And they've been a victim of that many times. So that's something that you should really take with your considerations. I think this is a small blueprint of how you can get to a tribe in Brazil. I will try to put down some links where you can actually go by yourself. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, subscribe, like, and share. And I hope to see you on the next video. Goodbye.
Vishina wa ibubu, Vishina wa yoshibu, Yoshibu bubutan, Eskawa shum kaya wa kiki.